is a ton of value in current Underdog Playoff Best Ball ADP. Elite offenses like the Bills are easy to stack. Take advantage of uncertainty and start drafting now. Use the promo code SEEK for up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And subscribe to Heat Seeker Sports on YouTube for Underdog strategy and drafting shows. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching the Playoff Best Ball show. We do a Playoff Best Ball show covering underdog drafts, and we jump into the Gauntlet, which is the $25 contest that Underdog runs, and it is a great contest to enter. It keeps your playoff hopes alive, or keeps your fantasy hopes alive throughout the playoffs. If you got eliminated in Best Ball, you didn't make it to the finals or whatever, and I guess everybody's season is done, but Playoff Best Ball continues the Best Ball season throughout the playoffs, and you can get a $100 match, up to a $100 match from Underdog by using the promo code SEEK, S-E-E-K, and they are going to match you up to $100 on your first deposit for new accounts, and you're going to want to do that. Spread and I are going to be doing some of these shows throughout the next week or so, and going to be doing it probably throughout the playoffs, honestly, because Underdog keeps introducing these contests week after week as the playoffs move on. And Spread is joining me today. We're going to kind of cover Spread's overview of what he thinks is going to happen in Week 18 and some of the playoff scenarios that he thinks is going to play out. I did a show last night where I covered my perspective of it, so you can check that out on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to get alerts for when these shows are coming out. Hit like on this video. We're looking for 15 likes to put out a shorter video. And Spread, what's going on, man? How's everything going with you?
Oh, man, I am doing good, and I'm excited to start talking about some of these scenarios here. We had some surprises here in Week 17, but now things are much more clear as far as playoff scenarios. And before we start, I'm hoping to replicate the performance of last week where you targeted Rams and I targeted the Browns, and both those teams have moved up, or players from those teams have moved up quite significantly in their ADPs over the past week. So when you started last week and you said now's the time to get in, this was the reason why, because if I tried to emulate that Brown stacks today, I don't think it was going to be available at the positions that I got. So we're going to continue to try and do some things, maybe make some contrarian takes here, but when you're drafting this early, that's the reason. There's no reason to draft this early and go chalk. You're drafting this early because we're hoping that there's going to be some upsets in this final week, maybe some playoff scenarios that other people aren't considering, and we're going to take advantage of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And Spread is right on. We were putting over these teams last week, and Underdog actually put out a tweet just the other day talking about the biggest ADP risers, and they were all Browns and Rams. So the exact teams that we were talking about last week, Spread and I have been on top of these like sleeper teams that, advanced to the playoffs. The Rams got their playoff spot clinched. The Browns had a spot clinched, and now they are starting to get some attention because Joe Flacco had another huge week. So people are starting to realize that they are a fantasy relevant team, and they are a team that can be dangerous in the playoffs. They got potential easy first round, and we'll get into that when Spread breaks down his analysis. And I will give you my rankings if you use the promo code SEEK. I forgot to mention that when you sign up for your Underdog account. Use the promo code SEEK. First-time depositors get up to a $100 match, and I'll give you my playoff rankings. Just hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Pumacom, and I have my DMs open, so you can hit me up over there. And Spread, let's dive in. Let's dive into this Week 18 situation. I want to get your thoughts on how you think that this is going to play out.
All right. So you're going through here, and I see you've pulled the playoff predictor up. Let's see. I can't see as well. I'm going to go full screen here. See if I can see it a little better. All right. Much better now for me.
So basically the first game on the list would be Pittsburgh versus Baltimore. And just wondering what your take is on that. I think Baltimore is going to rest their starters. I mentioned yesterday that Beckham has a lot of incentives to make a lot of bonuses if he hits some milestones in Week 18. But it looks like they're going to keep the starters on the bench. But what are your thoughts on how that game will play out?
And that's a tough one for me because I feel like my projections are invalid. And I don't personally do players models, but even if you do, we don't know at this point who's going to be in and out. Are they going to play the starters for a quarter? Are they going to play the starters for a half? Is it going to be Tyler Huntley to start the game? And I'm sure we'll know by kickoff, but as of right now, we do not know that. Now, I see you have Pittsburgh scheduled here for a win. I think this is a tough game. One of the reasons I thought they might not rest their starters, right? Harbaugh's going all out in these preseason games. He seems like, and I actually agree with that strategy that you always win. You don't take your foot off the gas. And you instill that level of competition every single week. And I do like what he's doing there. So I see you have Pittsburgh at a 3-point win. I don't mind that, but from a betting perspective, I'm really hesitant to lay points with a Pittsburgh team against essentially, I mean, can we call Baltimore the best team in the NFL now since they beat the San Francisco 49ers? So I'm fine with your prediction here, but I also think this can be scary because I do think Baltimore could upset the apple cart with a win, even if they rest some people. Pittsburgh shows plenty of flaws so far this season. And I know that Mason Rudolph's been a good story, but how many backups have we seen come in, play great for 2 or 3 games, right? Josh Dobbs, Jake Browning. And then as the tape starts to build up, or maybe they were playing above their head and they're just regressing to the level of which they actually are as players, they've fallen off a bit. Not to mention this is a rivalry game. They know each other well. And boy, we were joking around talking betting yesterday. Isn't Tomlin so much more attractive as the dog? Yeah, a little bit worried about him here as a favorite. So I'm fine with that prediction, but I would also be wary that, especially from a betting perspective, I don't like laying the 3 with Pittsburgh at all this week. To me, it's Baltimore or pass. And I think that some people are going to play into the narrative that Pittsburgh needs the game and Baltimore doesn't. But I think that Baltimore's still going to put a great effort out there.
Yeah. I think that's right on. And I would not be surprised even if Baltimore's backups could take care of Pittsburgh, just in the state that Pittsburgh's in. The worst part about Pittsburgh potentially winning this is that it puts Buffalo in danger. If Buffalo loses to Miami, then Pittsburgh would make the playoffs instead of Buffalo. Like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So Buffalo is crazy because right now on yours, I see them, they have the number 2 seed. But they could potentially miss the playoffs if they were to lose, Pittsburgh wins, and Jacksonville wins. So while there are a lot of our favorites to go south far here in the playoffs, because I do think they're live with all these AFC teams showing so many flaws, you have to like Buffalo's chances, especially if they got that number 2 seed. But they're also in danger of going out. And how much would that kind of upset the apple cart, so to speak, with people drafting Bills pretty high, because there's a good chance that they could be in the conference championship or even the Super Bowl. So I think this gives us a great illustration of how we're taking stands now. And, we're really rolling the dice here, and we'll get to that Buffalo game here soon. But that's another one that a lot of people are circling as the Buffalo win. And I'm not necessarily so sure. Miami's played them well. Miami went up there as a big, 11, 12-point dog, almost pulled off the upset last year. They did lose in Buffalo earlier this year, but they will have the home field advantage. And we know how much that means to the Dolphins. So I'm not necessarily so sure as everyone else seems to be that Buffalo beats the Dolphins here because, Miami, right? They had the tough loss to Baltimore, but they're still a really good team. And we're 2 weeks away from thinking they had a chance to win the AFC if they would have got that home field advantage. So I don't think that's the walkover either. I think there's a lot of these +3s and -3s this week, Simon.
Yeah.
That seem like slam dunks for the teams that quote unquote need the win. That I'm not necessarily ready to write them in. So I might actually have a fun strategy today of kind of ignoring some of the Bills players and just knowing that, hey, I mean, things could get crazy here. And I doubt that both Pittsburgh and Jacksonville win, and they're knocked out of the deal with a loss. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the 7th seed, and then that's a much tougher road as far as racking up all those fantasy points that we're looking for.
Yeah. Do you think that Miami takes this? Do you want me, for the sake of argument, do you want me to go with Miami on this one?
I don't necessarily think so. I just don't think it's a slam dunk that everybody consuming other content this week just seems to think. A lot of people have written Buffalo into that number 2 spot. And here's my thing. I'd say they probably have like a 60% chance to win.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Right. But so I'm just saying that 40% chance is still pretty live, right? It's it's a +150, +175 type of deal there for Miami. And I really wouldn't be surprised if they were able to pull it off. They've looked so good at home this year. And I do think they are going to want to make a statement. I think that means a lot to them as far as they would jump up to the number 2 seed if they won, right? We want to switch it real quick just for the sake of seeing how the playoff scenarios switch out. So let's say now they're number 2. And how much nicer does that look for them? I think they're going to be going all out as well too. So I don't want to count Miami out here. So use those ideas in your scenarios and take a stand. So for today, I'm going to take the stand and I'm going to avoid the Bills just off the 40% scenarios. And I still think they might end up in. I'd be really surprised if both Pittsburgh and Jacksonville won. How did you have the Jacksonville game predicted?
I have Jacksonville winning that game. I think
right. Okay. Against Tennessee. Right.
Yeah. I do think that Tennessee could pull this one off because Hopkins has some bonus incentives if he catches, like over 100 yards or something like that. But, I think they'll make an effort to be aggressive against Jacksonville, which is dangerous for Jacksonville, especially with Tennessee playing at home. But I had Jacksonville winning that game, but I'm interested in your thoughts on that one, Spread.
I forgot they were playing Tennessee. That would be a bad loss. I was high on Tennessee coming into the year. They've definitely disappointed. And I probably was higher on Tannehill. I thought that he would bounce back. I think that he's completely done. But regardless who plays Sunday, you have Tannehill, who's completely washed, and you also have Levis, who's a complete project. He's at least another. I would run the project personally, Simon, but I still think he's another year away. I think it could be one of those Josh Allen year 3 deals. I think he needs a whole nother year of center before he's really going to be able to lead a playoff team. And I would run the project, but as far as projecting this team right now, I'm not high on Tennessee this week. But they're going to be fired up, and Vrabel's going to want to play spoiler there. I think you got a pretty good score here. I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville won, but Tennessee covered.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised either. I think a lot of these games are like that. They're just like they could go either way, and it's hard to project. And we got, I think I heard like something like 20 teams that still have opportunity to make it into the playoffs. So everything is still, there's still so much stuff like wide open with these playoffs. It's just it's kind of like a crazy, it's probably the craziest that I've seen going into a week 18. So it's very hard to project, especially with these games that could go any direction. And one of those games is Houston and Indy. Mm-hmm. And, if Jacksonville loses to Tennessee, then the winner of this game will decide who wins the AFC South. And I placed a bet spread on Houston at +500 in the beginning of the season to win the division. And I mean, that bet is still alive, as crazy as it is. And, I have Houston, winning this game against Indy. But what do you think could happen in that game?
I agree with you there, but this is another one that I say to be careful. Not only I've done this as well, but I'm not wisdom of the crowd, right? The market has underestimated Indianapolis all year. That's simply been a fact. I know that. Okay, oh cool, they exceeded expectations with Richardson. Richardson goes down. Everybody thinks they're done. They cut the player they were building their defense around in the middle of the season because he's fallen off so much. They're still able to get the wins. I think it's a great coaching matchup. Steichen's shown, and you've been on this all year, Simon. And I remember I was giving you some pushback at the beginning of the year, but now I have to fall in line with how much those coordinators meant to Sirianni. And we've seen how the Eagles' offense has declined without him at the helm there. And I'm talking about Shane Steichen, the coach of the Colts. At the same time, DeMeco Ryans, we see him in a little drop off from the 49ers defense as well. So these are two coordinators who were instrumental to the success of their team, which allowed them to get promoted. And they've shown the ability, because we've seen other guys, Josh McDaniels, that are great coordinators that aren't able to make the leap. Both these guys have been able to do it. Same thing. I agree with your Houston pick, but I still think it's, right around that plus 150, 37 to 40% range that Indy gets the win here. They're at home, and they've been underestimated all year. So that's going to be another fun one. And you talked about earlier, this is one of the best week 18s we've had in a while. There has been some pushback, especially for me, on that seventh team. But this is the year I think that it was created for and implemented for. And if we had to sit through a couple 37-3 beatdowns, it makes up for it this year, where I think that these number 7 seeds are going to be a little more live than usual.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of the theme of the season, because we've seen underdogs pull upsets all season. You and I, Spread, have been drafting those underdogs in our showdown lineups all season long, and they've been hitting for us all season long. And the playoffs look no different. I don't know if it's a parity thing or what the deal is, but like I've never seen things so close as this year, and then all the underdogs hitting throughout the season. It's just been the year of the underdog, the year of the backup quarterback, and we have several of them in these playoffs, and it's going to be a crazy playoffs. I don't think that we're going to see the standard favorites necessarily in the Super Bowl. I think we're going to see something
Really,
crazy.
that's funny. I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
I think we'll see some upsets, but I think I wouldn't be surprised to see these two number ones face off and rematch that Christmas Day game.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't shock me, but I just think that the way that the season's been playing out, like look at the Browns, for instance, right? Like Joe Flacco can easily, and we talked about this last week, and this is the reason why you were recommending to draft the Browns. Like the Browns could easily take out whoever ends up in this number 4 seed, like that is a matchup that the Browns can win, whether it's the Jags, the Texans, or the Colts. So the Browns have a pretty clear path to the second round. And if they end up playing, let's say, Baltimore in the second round, they're division opponents. So, you got Baltimore facing off against Cleveland, a team that knows them well, and they're used to playing each other. Cleveland could easily upset Baltimore in that scenario. Cleveland's a good team. They got a powerful offense. They got a good defense, and they could give a lot of trouble to Baltimore, I think. So, Cleveland is live to, make it, pretty far into these playoffs. And then on top of that, you look at all these teams in the NFC, the narrative is always that Shanahan takes care of McVay, right? Well, I could see a scenario where McVay ends up in round 2 facing off against San Francisco. We got that narrative playing out, but then McVay is able to, to take a game from Shanahan. Like the pendulum is due to swing. I know it swung in one game. I can't remember if it was this season or last season. Like he ended up finally beating him. But I could totally see division opponents here, like where the Rams can take out potentially the 49ers. So I think things are wide open right now with these teams. And I think, honestly, you and I were right on last week when we were pinpointing the Browns and the Rams as teams to target, because I think that those teams are two of the most dangerous teams in these playoffs, and we're looking at a number 5 seed and a number 6 seed. So, I just think that upsets are live for sure. I think the most likely outcome is, it's probably going to be Baltimore versus San Francisco, but I think that upsets are definitely live given some of the matchup potential that we have as these playoffs advance,
I think that Baltimore is much more vulnerable than San Francisco.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at that NFC side, LA's the only team I'd really be scared of if I'm the Niners, and I'm still going to make them a 6-point favorite if they square off up there in Santa Clara. And it's not that I necessarily believe in these teams a little bit more. I just think we've seen some inconsistency with the Ravens on closing out games. I also think that the Niners will be able to use the bye better. And when you talked about that potential Cleveland matchup in the second round, I wonder if there's a bit of a slow start for the Ravens coming off that bye, especially since both these teams will be resting this week as well. And finally, that matchup is great for Cleveland because that's the one game where Baltimore's not going to have the better defense on the field in the AFC side. Right. That's why I think Cleveland could pose a lot of problems here for Baltimore. I want to talk to you about this game, Simon, the Atlanta and New Orleans game.
Yep.
The winner of that game will make the playoffs, if I'm correct, right? Is Tampa eliminated now? No, you have Tampa at 4.
Yeah. Tampa would.
Oh, because Tampa wins. If Tampa beats Carolina, then that Saints game doesn't matter, right?
Yes. Well, it still matters for the 7 spot, because if Green Bay loses, then you get like either Seattle. I thought that the Saints could get in there. If Seattle loses too, then it'd be the Saints. So you see these like this pendulum, like this, just like these swings with these teams that could potentially make it in. It's just crazy.
Well, I talk about crazy upsets happening. The one I'll scratch that off is Tampa. Let's go ahead. We don't need to run any scenarios where Carolina wins. And if I have to eat my words, so be it. But that's one thing that I do believe is a surefire thing. Things are falling apart there in Carolina, and they're going to have to do a full rebuild without their number 1 pick. That's a tough spot for that team. Right now, you just switched it here. That's another one that I would not be surprised if we saw an upset. The Chicago Bears have a lot to play for. Justin Fields is either playing for his job in Chicago or auditioning to land on a potential playoff team with the way he plays. I think Chicago's going to be fired up there, and they've been playing some good football lately. I believe the Chicago defense is better than what the Packers have been putting on the field over the last 4 weeks. So Chicago's going to have the defensive advantage, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Fields go toe-to-toe there with Jordan Love. Jordan Love got great against that Minnesota defense, however, and I do rank the Minnesota defense higher than Chicago's defense. So, hey, maybe they get that one done as well. But I can also see Chicago getting that win. So you mentioned it before. This is a fantastic final week. And I also think these 7 seeds are going to be a little more live than they have been the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just too much quality that has the potential to make it in this year. And I mean, that's a tribute to the records all these teams have and their potential to make it into these playoffs, because Seattle, I think, is a decent team. I think the most dangerous team out of that potential 7 spot would be Green Bay, just based on how they've been playing lately and the fact that they've been doing it without even Christian Watson. But I do agree with you on the Chicago side. The fans all chanting for Justin Fields in that game, and they're on like I bet I was listening to the ETR podcast earlier. They were talking about how they announced that the coach is going to be returning next year. The fans want Justin Fields to return next year. They got an emotional high right now. And on top of that, like what better way to end their season than to take out Green Bay, who, like the past, like we own you type of stuff to Chicago. I mean, that would be a huge win for Chicago, knocking out a division opponent out of the playoffs and then getting that win over Green Bay that they've been trying to get forever.
Yeah, it's going to be a great week 18 here. So I'm pretty excited about a lot of these games.
Yeah, that's a good one. And so with Atlanta versus New Orleans, let's say theoretically that Tampa Bay somehow lost, that would make this game obviously significant. But who do you think? Yeah, like whoever wins this game. So if we have Tampa Bay losing, if it's Atlanta, even Atlanta could come in at that number 4 seed, as bad as Atlanta is, like, and we've been, like just frustrated with the coach throughout the season with the fantasy implications and everything like that. Imagine having that with best ball playoff drafts. It'd be a nightmare, like with Arthur Smith getting into that number 4 seed. But it's a possibility,
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is I think that we can ignore that number 4 seed.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to get blown out in the first game regardless. I don't know. What do you think? Philly's shown a lot of flaws, though.
No, I have I'm with you. I have Philly advancing to the next round. I actually talked on the show that I recorded yesterday how I think that it was a good thing that Philly lost this week to the Cardinals because it knocked them into this position where they're facing off against whoever wins this division, which is probably like the easiest matchup that they could have gotten. Because I would rather have them playing, as a fan, I'd rather have them playing Tampa Bay than Green Bay. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it was actually a good thing that they lost this week.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah. So let's. I think the last game of significance. I think the Rams beat the I don't know if that game has much significance other than the Rams being a 6 or 7 seed, but Seattle was one. We think Seattle's going to win. Philly, they're most likely to win. I think as far as significant games, I think we've pretty much covered all of them. Spread. Do you think there's anything that we're missing in there?
No, we've got them all.
Do you want, let's see, did you want Chicago winning that game against Green Bay, or do you want to put Green Bay as the winner?
We could do it either way. Here's the deal. So we're doing this to figure out our underdog picks, right?
Yeah, just to kind of project who we
throw Green Bay in there. Even if Seattle were to sneak in there, are we too interested in any of their players?
Not really. I haven't drafted any Seattle. Actually, I've drafted more Seattle than Green Bay, but I do think that Green Bay is more likely to get in there.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm going to avoid both those teams. Dallas at home's been such a juggernaut. It just feels like you're drafting guys that are going to lose in the first round.
Yeah.
Right. And so, especially Seattle, just because you got to make a decision on which guy if you're also going in there, right? Where I feel like it's easier to decide who I want to target there for Green Bay.
Yeah, I think the only reason to draft anyone on Seattle, Green Bay, or Tampa Bay, those are the teams that I think are most likely to get eliminated. I think the advantage of drafting any of those guys, if you think that they're going to make it into the playoffs, first of all, is to get you those late round studs that can help you advance to the second round if you draft too many of the first round bye guys. So if you're drafting a lot of the Ravens or a lot of the 49ers and you need upside later in these drafts, that's the only reason to draft those teams. And you can get guys like DK Metcalf in round 9 or 10. You can get guys like Christian Watson or Jordan Love or, like Mike Evans and guys like that. You can draft late in these drafts, and they have monster upside, and they have the matchups, because if the Bucks are going up against the Eagles, like that is a great matchup for the offense of Tampa Bay. Even though I think that the Eagles can win that game, because I think it's a relatively even matchup for the offenses on both these teams. But I think I'd give the edge, obviously, to the Eagles. But like the weapons that Tampa Bay has in Mike Evans and Rachaad White mainly are going to have the matchups that can get them enough fantasy points to advance your team to the next round, I think.
Exactly. And I think the blow up potential for Dallas at home is so much greater than Philly on the road. As in, Philly could advance, but it's 31-28, 31-24, numbers where both teams are going to put up fantasy points. Mm-hmm. I'm really worried that 7 seed on the NFC side, it could be a 41-10. Where we don't get much from that team. And the greatest potential of all the first round playoff games for blowout to me is Dallas.
Yeah.
And it's funny, and I don't view Dallas as a serious contender. I just can't see them beating the good teams. But we know what they do against teams that they're better than. Yeah. And that's why their net rating is so high this season. I statistically power rank them so much higher than my brain does, just because I simply can't see them winning that big game against the 49ers. And I think they could still even struggle against the Eagles, as bad as the Eagles have looked.
Yeah, for sure. And like Spread said, I mean, I've been talking about it all season with Dallas. They're a team that bullies the weak teams, and they, get bullied by the good teams. And, like they're going to have a pretty decent home field advantage in that number 2 spot, obviously with that first round, but also the second round. But I think the second round, they're going to face a more quality opponent. If we have this set up here, let me check and see who they would face in round 2. If we have this set up here, Dallas beats Green Bay, and you think that Philly beats Tampa Bay with me, right, Spread?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be Dallas versus Philly in round 2, assuming that the Rams advanced to round 2 as well. Do you think that the Rams or the Lions make it to round 2?
That's a tough one. I think that's a coin flip.
Yeah.
I know betting wise, I'll be on the Rams, because I'll bet you the Lions are going to be getting -3, which means I'm getting +140, +150. And I actually think it's a coin flip.
Yeah.
Stafford going back home.
Yeah.
That they're going to love that game. And it should be high scoring as well. As good as the Lions are, they have shown some flaws. But they're a team that, when they were missing all those offensive and defensive linemen, they put some poor performances up. And I know we're not supposed to do this, but when you take those games out, they're still really highly rated. And in fact, that healthy Lions team, I think, is much better than Philadelphia, which if you would have told me I'd be saying this at the beginning of the season, I would have thought you were crazy. Right. But that's the way that it's turned out here. But we talked about upsets, right? Philly could upset Dallas with the same way Cleveland could upset Baltimore, right? It's a divisional matchup. They know each other well. We know that one team is better, but the familiarity, I think, gives the underdog a greater chance.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we had, I'll play 2 scenarios. If we had the Rams win that game, then San Francisco would be up as the number 1 seed against the number 6 seed Rams. And then we would have number 2 seed Dallas versus number 5 seed Philly. So we'd have division opponents playing against each other. If Detroit won that game, then we would have, let's see.
Then we'd have San Francisco, Philly, and Dallas, Detroit.
Yeah.
And it'd be a rematch of, boy, I'm glad we're not talking about that ending, but what a joke that was.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, Detroit proved that they could beat the Cowboys, and I think Detroit, it'd be an ultimate revenge game for Detroit. So there's a good storyline there either way. You either got divisional opponents or you got a revenge game. So either one of those scenarios makes Dallas vulnerable, and we know Dallas's history in the playoffs with their choking. I think they're vulnerable in that second round, which is interesting. But who do you think would win between Dallas and either that Detroit or Philly matchup?
I would like Detroit over Dallas, but I'd like Dallas over Philly. I am saying that Philly's live here.
Yeah.
But if we're just picking, I mean, I'd probably put Dallas, the way the Philly's been playing lately, at 65%.
Gotcha.
Not to mention the pressure they're under in that city of Philadelphia. They really turn on their teams fast out there.
They do. They do. And they turn on
their weird. If you love your team so much, you're actually hurting your team by doing that. They do the same thing to 76ers.
Yeah. And that's the thing, from being more into the DFS side of things and not really caring, about the fandom stuff. I'll support the Eagles no matter what. I don't give a shit. I'll support them no matter what, because I don't have that emotional attachment that, the everyday fan where they get all pissed off at their team. I'm just sitting there hey, if the Eagles suck, I'm going to bet against them. I don't really care either way. I just like the Eagles, But, if we have Dallas advancing, I think we're both assuming that San Francisco is going to win their matchup. So it'd be San Francisco, Dallas. So it'd be a 1 versus 2, assuming that, it plays out that way where Dallas wins and Philly, Dallas just needs to win to basically win the division at this point. So San Francisco versus Dallas. And we both think that San Francisco wins that matchup. San Francisco
would smoke them.
Yeah.
I think it'd be just like the last time.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a path right there. San Francisco has a pretty clear path, as we were talking on the top of the show, to get to the Super Bowl, which makes them the most attractive team to target in these best ball drafts. Now, if we move on to the AFC, between Buffalo and, let's say, who do we have in there? We got Buffalo.
Do you want to switch it back to Buffalo?
I'm sorry.
We were kind of messing around there because I said Miami's live.
Right. Up to you. I want to go with who you think, Spread.
Let's have some fun here. Let's keep Miami winning, but let's have Baltimore win against Pittsburgh, and then we'll put Buffalo in 7.
Okay.
All
so
right.
Then that's
look at that first round game.
Yeah.
That we would want. I mean, that would be the game that we'd probably be targeting for DFS, right? In Miami, a rematch. They just played the last week.
Yep. So
they've been playing 2 weeks in a row in the very same venue.
Yeah, Miami versus Buffalo, we'd have in that one, and then 3 versus 6. Who would be the 6th seed here? Let me just go
Tennessee.
back there.
I say we keep it like that.
Yeah, we'd have.
Not Tennessee, Texans.
Houston.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. Houston versus Kansas City. I actually like Houston in that matchup versus Kansas City. What do you think their spread?
That's so tough. As many flaws as Kansas City has shown this season, the thing is we judge them as a playoff team. Expectations mean so much when we're waiting performance, right?
Yeah.
Houston's coming off a season where they had the number 2 pick overall, and they didn't get that through a trade. They got that because they were bad.
Yeah.
So they came in with the expectations, hey, we're turning this thing around. And I'd say that they've exceeded expectations. Now, Kansas City has failed to meet expectations, but our expectations for them were to win the Super Bowl. Right. So while I think Houston's a great story, I'd probably take Kansas City there. Okay. What do you think that line comes out at? -3, -4 for the Chiefs?
I think it'd be like a -6.
You think
You know?
so? Do you think
Yeah.
they'd rate? When I'm saying -3, -4, I'd say they have the Chiefs 1 or 2 points better than the Texans. You give them a couple points for being at home. But yeah, I guess you could say 3 points better as well. I don't know. To me, it's hard to get to 3 points better than Houston because Kansas City hasn't been winning by margin.
Yeah.
So when I'm putting their numbers in, they haven't had any of those offensive explosions. How you really just jump up in those net ratings is you do stuff like the Cowboys and the Niners do, right? You win, or the Baltimore 54-19. That's how you jump up in power rankings because margin of victory means so much here. Yeah, I think Kansas City would win, but boy, you're right. I mean, Houston's live there, and
Yeah.
they have nothing to lose. They have no. Kansas City's got all the pressure there. But at the end of the day, Mahomes, Reed in the playoffs, if they can just get some of those guys to hold on the ball, I think they get it done. And Kansas City's defense has been sneaky good this year. The home field advantage probably puts me over the edge. I'll take Kansas City.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say about Kansas City in that matchup is the strength of Houston has been the running defense, like as far as their defense.
Right.
And, Kansas City has been relying so heavily on the run lately that Houston would be able to shut down potentially like Pacheco, and it would force Mahomes to beat them in the air. And he can beat them, but his weapons can't beat them. And that's the thing. That's where it comes down to weapons. Because Houston, they don't have the best running game, but they have a run game that can go against, Kansas City's defense, which has been weak against the run lately. We've seen a lot of upside games out of Singletary, especially when they have to respect Stroud in the passing game. But if they're able to run the ball in Kansas City, and then Stroud's able to get a few plays off, like they have the advantage as far as the passing game. Sounds crazy to say, but like the weapons that Houston has, and the like the sync of that team in the passing game. They don't have Tank Dell though. That's the only problem. Like they'd be going with Nico Collins and Noah Brown, which again, like sounds crazy. And then they got Dalton Schultz, and it'd be up against, like Mahomes' weapons. He's got MVS, Kadarius Toney, and Rashid Rice, and kind of an aging Travis Kelce. So I mean, I guess I give the passing game edge to the Chiefs in that situation. I think it'd come down to like who would be able to just come together in their passing game in that situation. I don't know.
Yeah. Two counterpoints there. We've seen good run defenses get gashed.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking down the Bills Cowboys game earlier this year, we thought, oh, they're not going to be able to run the ball. Josh Allen's going to put up huge numbers. And then Dallas run defense, which has been fantastic all season, ends up falling apart. And Buffalo wins the game on the ground. So we do know that defenses can be more inconsistent than offenses. And two, the Kansas City weapons know that this is their get out of jail free card.
Right.
A big game here, right? You catch everything. It's going to undo all the sins of the season. And these guys are talented. I mean, there's a reason they thought they could move on from Tyreek Hill. These guys can run routes and get open. They just don't catch the ball.
Right.
Right. Kadarius Toney. I mean, guys open a lot. I just don't know how much trust there is, but Mahomes is going to have to let that fly. And maybe with these expectations lowering, we have an opportunity for one of these guys to have a breakout game. So I still lean towards Kansas City getting the win there, but I could see why people would like Houston. I also wonder how much the first playoff game is going to be for Stroud.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
I mean, came in with no pressure. They kind of started slow because he didn't play good week one, although it was a tough matchup. Then he kind of gets things going here. But the playoffs are a whole different beast, and the people talk about, not being ready for it. So let's see. He's met every challenge so far, but it wouldn't be a surprise if he didn't have his best game.
Yeah. The thing that I like about Stroud is he kind of reminds me of, Joe Burrow, like that year that they made that Super Bowl run in that, young quarterback. He doesn't seem to let, pressure get to him. He seems to handle himself well. He's composed, which I like about him. And, like I think that, from a, like a stability, like a confidence standpoint, that he would come into Kansas City feeling relatively confident. And I don't think that the moment would be too big for him necessarily, but like maybe the rest of the team, maybe the rest of the team just does, maybe things just don't come together for the team like we saw with the Bengals. Because at least with the Bengals, you had like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I don't know if Nico Collins and Noah Brown are going to be able to pull off that same like magic, like in Stroud's run,
Yeah, and we talk about Nico Collins, but Ladarius Sneed, I think that's his name, number 38 on the Chiefs, has quietly become, in my mind, like a top 5 corner. I don't follow the PFF stats or anything, but just on tape, I mean, he did great against Devontae last week, and I've seen him really shut some people down. Did pretty well against Chase last week as well, if I remember correctly. So
yeah,
that's another thing the Chiefs do have in their favor there. Maybe they can get Houston to be a little more run-centric if Snead continues his dominant play, because he's quietly become one of the best corners in the league.
Yeah. So out of this Miami Buffalo game, who'd you pick to win that one?
I like Miami. I know people are really high on Buffalo. I just think that with the bad performance by the Dolphins against the Ravens, that we've downgraded them too much.
Yeah.
Right. We didn't downgrade the Niners when they lost to the Ravens.
Right. Yeah.
But now we're all jumping, and I understand the Niners have had a longer string of success for us to fall back on. And the Dolphins are kind of the new kids on the block. This is their first real year being a contender. I know they had a nice season last year, but I didn't believe in them here. But I wouldn't be surprised, especially in Miami. That means so much. I don't like this team in the cold, but if they're going to be able to play in their warm weather and throw the ball around, I wouldn't be surprised if Miami got the win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And I think as far as Cleveland and Jacksonville, I think we both like Cleveland in that one, probably, right, Spread?
I do, yeah. I think Jacksonville is probably the more talented team, but the way injuries have decimated that team, I don't think Trevor's 100%, and I think the Browns are rocking and rolling. Browns have the best defense left in the playoffs, and the way that things have changed in the NFL, right? We felt for a little while, right? Because it's all elite quarterbacks that win. Could this be the year that the old adage come true and can a defense win a championship? We might be coming back to that there, Simon.
I mean, look at the setup we have in that next matchup. We got Baltimore versus Cleveland, exactly like what we were talking about. We're division opponents. And then we got Miami versus Kansas City in Miami. So with defense versus defense in Baltimore and Cleveland, they also got good offenses. Like which of those matchups do you think, which of those teams do you think wins that matchup?
I mean, obviously we'd favor Baltimore, but that's a bet. Cleveland's the best team that has the best chance to upset them. They're going to be free rolling if that comes in there. It's going to be Joe Flacco going against his old team. Talk about the fans, right? I mean, there's going to be so much pressure on them. I mean, they simply can't lose that game. Cleveland's going to be free rolling, right?
Yeah.
They're $1 million quarterbacks on the bench. We all wrote them off when he went down, and they continue to win. And on the other game, we talked about the Chiefs being able to keep up with the Texans. I don't see how they can keep up with the Dolphins, barring injuries, because they're not equipped to win a shootout anymore. And as good as their defense is, I don't think you're going to be able to stop Miami over and over and over again to win a low-scoring battle. So I'd say it's either Cleveland or Baltimore against Miami there in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, I think you're right. I like Miami in there. And you know what? A good thing that I've noticed, Spread, with the value on these ADP with these Miami players is they're all tanking. Like everybody thinks that Miami now is not going to – everybody's down on Miami, basically. I think
it's a great week to play them. Let's play them the week they lost, what was it, 54-19 or whatever?
Yep.
Let's start targeting some Dolphins here.
Unfortunately, they also lost Bradley Chubb, which I think is a major blow
to
the defense. But they still got a really good defense, with their secondary healthy at least. But I think that Miami is still like a team to be obviously reckoned with, and I think that I'm with you 100%. I think that they would easily advance over the Chiefs. Maybe not easily, but they would advance over the Chiefs into the next round. And then at that point, it's take your pick between Cleveland and Baltimore. But let's say Baltimore, for the sake of argument, advances, and it's Baltimore versus Miami. I think we're probably leaning Baltimore in that game, right? Spread.
Yeah, I think it's tough to see what Miami can do differently.
Yeah,
against that Baltimore team.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that point, you're right. We'd get a Baltimore versus San Francisco, so we get the favorites. But, I mean, at least with this path, we're opening the door to draft value in Cleveland, Miami now that they're falling, and some of these other teams in the NFC, like the Rams, and potentially Dallas, because Dallas's players are pretty cheap in these drafts too. So, I think that we have a lot of good value to draft, just based on what we think for what we have advancing in this scenario of the playoffs right now. But Spread, do you want to go ahead and jump into a draft now that we've kind of covered all this stuff?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, let me just go over to my Underdog screen here. So guess we can jump into the gauntlet. Give me a second here to set it up.
Just count it down for me.
While I'm talking about this, make sure to sign up for Underdog using the promo code SEEK. And as I said, they will match you up to $100 on your first deposit for a new account. And use the promo code SEEK. Hit me up on Twitter at Pumacom, and I will give you my playoff best ball rankings. You can DM me over on Twitter to get those. So I'm going to find the gauntlet here. Okay, Spread, I'm ready when you are, and we can give a countdown from 3 if you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right, let's go in 3, 2, 1. 3 more to start.
Let's see if I'm in here. I'm circling. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so basically, make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Looking for 400 subscribers by the end of the playoffs. Getting really close there. Spread, you landed in a great spot at number 2. I'm at number 6. So not so great there. But I do think that there's some value that is falling in these drafts. And, we'll see what happens with these drafts, this particular draft. But there's definitely value to be found in the 6 and 7 spots still. But what are you thinking there for your 2 spot? Probably McCaffrey, we assume is off the board at that point.
Right, which means I'm probably going to go with Lamar Jackson.
I like it.
So my strategy here, Simon, is I am going to try and do a stack of one of these Super Bowl teams here. So because I got 2 and not 1, I'll probably fall to Baltimore. And then my secondary stack, I'm going to be targeting these teams that we talked about that could be a tad bit undervalued. But I'm going to go ahead. We talk about a game script, right? My playoff script is the Baltimore San Francisco Super Bowl. I know it's chalky, but I think these 2 teams are just head and shoulders above the rest of the field. So, right, I want pieces of there. I mean, I guess I could have gone Purdy here, but I like what I'm able to do here, grabbing Jackson. So I'm going to try and grab a couple Ravens to start, and then I'm going to fill it in because I'm going to need to advance in these next couple rounds in order to be able to use Lamar, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the right call, drafting Lamar there. I think
so you got the turn. You get 2.
Yeah, Yeah, I get to pick two. See what I'm talking about with Tyreek? Tyreek is now falling further and further down these boards. He's going at number 2, number 3 for a while,
Mhm.
and it was hard to get him. But now he is still on the board at pick 5. I think this dude in front of me will probably no. He took Purdy.
I
So
don't hate that Purdy pick either, though, right? It's just like me taking Lamar. You think you're getting a Super Bowl, a player from a potential Super Bowl champion. So you got Tyreek. Who do you want to match him with?
I'm going to go with Ayuk because
Okay.
I think that what we were talking about before. I think Miami is live for a Super Bowl opportunity, and I think San Francisco is like a clear favorite to win the NFC. And I think that they've been my favorite the last few years for the Super Bowl, and this year is no different. They had some bad luck last year. Can't remember what happened the year before that, but last year was a complete, like just fluke that they lost Brock Purdy. They literally had no quarterback in
Real
that
quick,
game.
because I got 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm going between St. Brown and Zay Flowers. I like St. Brown more, but should I be just correlate here?
Correlate. Yep.
Okay.
Because you can get the value to make up for it later on, like
Okay.
based on those players that we were talking about.
Okay. So
And
third now I'm looking at either boy, that Mostert is just really attractive to me right now.
So
Would I be crazy if St. Brown was still on the board if I took Mostert?
Yeah, because I think you want to get like more correlated with your lineup. I think that if you're stacking an AFC team, you want your extra players to be more NFC than AFC. And if you're looking at
Oh, okay.
stack, you know what I mean? Like you want your floaters to be more on the opposite conference.
Huh.
At least that's how I play it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go with Kyron Williams then.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I think Kyron Williams on the Rams is a team. I've been targeting the Rams a ton. As we've talked about. So now at least you have a fallback for your NFC team. You can project that you're going to have the Ravens versus the Rams. I'm going to grab Mostert here to go along with my Tyreek, and I'm going to go with Waddle as well. I'm just going to continue stacking.
Wow, you got a
Stacking.
great team.
So
that's fantastic.
I mean, if the what do you call it? If luck falls to me and Miami is able to advance past the Ravens into the Super Bowl, then that's a good start. And the correlation is key with this stuff. Like I was trying to explain to Spread earlier, like you wanna choose your team that you're gonna stack. If you draft the Ravens and you commit to the Ravens, you stack the Ravens, and then you choose an NFC opponent that you think you'll be able.
So should I grab Gus Edwards here?
I think you go with the. I think you can continue with the stack. Honestly, you have Kyron already. You want to make sure that you have at least like a full Baltimore team to make it to the Super Bowl, and you need a quarterback.
I grabbed the guys.
Yeah, quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. So you want your matchup to have that. If you're projecting the Rams versus the Ravens right now, then I would be focused on Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua as my next guys.
Okay.
Just to give you that upside to make up for the bye weeks that you have kind of brewing there.
Okay.
So it's coming back up on Spread.
I'm gonna grab Nacua if he's there. I mean, I can get either one. It'll be Nacua or Kupp. But right now, if I can have either, I'll go ahead and take Nacua.
Yeah.
What a find! What that was for that team, right?
Yeah, that was a great. I mean, the Rams like with their, like 5th and 6th round picks. What was Nakua? What round would he drafted in?
I don't even know. But the point is, when you have a good coach, you're never dead.
Yeah.
And I talk about this so much when we hammer on these guys for bad play calling. And I think that like Tomlin and Carroll are examples. And I think that people's criticisms of their in-game play calling are correct. But I think that they're not weighting all the teaching and accountability that goes on during the week with these teams, right? And I think McVay's up there where he can take a guy. My point is, I don't know if Nakua would have done so well if he would have been drafted somewhere else. I think that working with McVay is one of the reasons he's rookie of the year. I don't think that 29 teams passed on him. I don't know if he would have got drafted by Houston or New Orleans if he would have had such a breakout. Okay, so I see that you grabbed Devontae and Goddard, so you got a little Philly action here.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I grabbed those guys is because they both have the best matchup against Tampa Bay in that first round. The matchup against Tampa Bay, they're weakest in the slot and against tight end. And that is perfect for Devontae and Goddard, and sets me up to have a like a potential like big week out of one of those guys and help me advance.
Would I be crazy if I grabbed Cup here?
No, I would totally grab Cup right now.
I like that. Okay, so I'm going to grab Cup with this one.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to target for my next pick. Boy, Justice Hill.
I don't know if I'd go that thin.
Okay.
That thin just
Maybe
yet.
some David Montgomery.
Well, look at your quarterback, because you need to start thinking about, well, I was going to say Dak would be.
I grab Stafford now. I think he'll still be there, don't you?
He is at 50 ADP. Yeah, I don't think you need to. I would be looking at Odell Beckham, and I'd be looking at who's the Isaiah Likely if I were you.
Is Likely still on the board?
I'm not sure, but Beckham is.
Yeah, I was thinking Likely too, but I think he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went. Okay.
Or if you wanted to,
I'm actually going to just grab David Montgomery here.
Yeah.
I need to get to the second round.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally makes sense. Yeah.
Now I'm targeting Stafford with my next pick, and I'm going to be distraught if he's not there. But I'm looking. Everyone else has quarterbacks, right?
Somebody just grabbed freaking Tua from me, man. Like,
yeah, I saw that.
Tua had been going to the 10th round.
That guy's been killing us. He's the guy who grabbed Likely from me too.
God, man.
He might have watched the show. I see him getting some Browns in there as well.
Now I got to draft a quarterback that's completely out of sync with my team. So I got to think of a new stack to focus on. I got to try to think of a realistic stack that I
would go Goff, and you can grab some Jameson Williams is out there.
Laporta. I'm going to grab Laporta and then go with Goff, like you said. Like, God,
I don't think that's that bad, actually.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I got my Miami stack. So Miami stack.
I think you can even get Jameson Williams there at the end.
No, I agree.
I don't know how popular he's going to be.
Yeah, like my Miami stack is in full force, right? So all I need to do is draft a component, missing components from the NFC side. Like to I think in advance. I might even draft a second quarterback from the NFC side, like just to kind of go along with Goff. Jameson Williams is my next on my list for sure, because I think Jameson Williams has a sneaky good matchup in that week one anyways,
Okay, so I have 2 players left. I have 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, because I just grabbed Stafford. Okay, so I'll need Stafford in week one. I'm fine with that. Pretty good on running backs here because I have that David Montgomery floater to go with Kyron and Gus. I probably need a wide receiver here just in case for the Rams. Odell's still out there.
If he
So is
lands,
Rashad Bateman, but they're going to have buys. Do I want to just grab someone that's a floater here?
let's see. If you wanted to, like, I would lean towards Demarcus Robinson, just the chemistry that he's shown with Stafford lately, and then that helps you out with your Rams stack.
So you're not worried about having 3 Rams?
Not
It's
necessarily,
3 Rams receivers,
because I
and I
think
don't have.
yeah. Because I'm looking at the other guys. Unless you think that the Seahawks can make it, and you like Metcalf's upside,
No,
then you got Nico Collins. If you think that the Texans
I'm
can
going to
get
grab
there.
Nico Collins. I know he's a floater and he's not core. Oh, I missed it. I ended up getting Justice Hill as my auto draft. I actually don't hate that.
Yeah, no, it's not bad.
I
Like,
actually don't hate that, but I have to get a wide receiver now.
yeah,
I think a lot of the options that we talked about are still going to be there for me, though.
yeah. All right, I'm grabbing Jameson Williams here.
Right, I thought that was a good one for you.
I'm gonna grab
another running back.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab Rashad White here, just because. Well, unless Jerome Ford's available, he is not. So I'm gonna go ahead and draft Rashad White just for that first round upside at the very least. Doesn't really correlate with anything.
Are you worried you only have 2 running backs?
No, because I'm drafting Mostert because he's got so much upside, right?
Yeah.
Like with running backs, if you don't get Christian McCaffrey or Kyron Williams, then everybody else is basically just like is what it is kind of situation. You could grab ETN. If he was available, I would have grabbed probably ETN or a guy like that. But since he's not available, we know the upside of Rashad White. I think White can get me through to that second round if Mostert doesn't. The thing that killed me with this draft is that dude taking freaking Tua. What was the point? Yeah. You have no one stacked with Tua.
He's just drafting.
Yeah.
He's just drafting his favorite guys. There's no correlation at all.
Right.
All right. I think my final pick is going to be Nico Collins. I know he's a floater, but I'm so invested in Baltimore already. With Lamar, Gus and Justice, and Zay Flowers. I want to be able to take advantage of them. I got to get past that first round here. And if the Rams were to stumble there, it gives me a little bit of a backup. I know it kind of sucks because I talked about not liking Nico Collins going against Ladarius Sneed. But that's what happens on your last draft, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about you going 1-2-7. Kind of surprised me, right? Can we look at what some of the other guys did as far as their numbers?
Yeah. So if we go to, let's see, I got the draft board up.
I went 2-4-4.
Okay. So spread. One thing with running backs, you only need one running back score per week, unless you want to use a running back as a flex. But it's probably I prefer to go more heavy on wide receiver than running back. Like at most, I'll try to draft maybe 2 or 3 running backs. Generally, I try to draft only 2. And I try to pick 2 guys that I think are going to advance, relatively far, at least one guy into the Super Bowl, and then one guy to kind of help me. Like if my Super Bowl guy has a bad week one week, but a guy who I think that can advance a few rounds. And that's not what I have here. I got Rashad White, but I think White can have a big week in that wild card round. But the way that I built my team here, I'll go over mine first, just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm thinking here. So when I went with Ayuk, Tyreek, Mostert, and Waddle, my direction was a Miami versus San Francisco Super Bowl. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get any other legit San Francisco guys at that point, so I pivoted and went with Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. So I was going from Miami versus Philly at that point. And then I had, San Francisco covered if San Francisco made it instead. I still was able to field a complete team because I have 2 wide receivers in Hill and Ayuk and Waddle. So 3 wide receivers there. So that covers my 2 wide receiver tight ends and my flex. And then I have my running back covered in Raheem Mostert. My only missing link was the quarterback. And normally, when all the Miami players are gone, the quarterback Tua will fall to like rounds 8 or 9 or whatever. I can grab him late, but somebody grabbed him without having any players to stack with him, which doesn't make any real sense from a standpoint of construction. But it happened, so I had to pivot, and that's where I went. You and I were talking about Detroit. I ended up going with Sam Laporta and Jared Goff. By having these 2 players, I still have a full team. Like if Miami makes it to the Super Bowl versus Detroit, because I got Goff, Laporta, and then all those Miami players. The thing that is going to bite me in the ass is I don't think that Detroit is going to make it to the Super Bowl. So if Miami happens to make it to the Super Bowl, then I'm talking about a team with no quarterback, because I did not get a second quarterback in there, which I should have done, but I didn't see anyone that I liked, and I didn't see anyone that I wanted to stack with. So I committed to that Detroit stack. So I committed to Goff and Detroit making it to the Super Bowl. That's why I drafted Jameson Williams to give myself another player in that stack. And then Rachaad White, I grabbed him just because I only had 1 running back at that point, and I needed some more upside at the running back position. So I ended up going with Rachaad White. So this way, if it's Detroit versus Miami in the Super Bowl, then I'm going to have a complete team, but I'm also going to have a bunch of extras on that team. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys on that team. And you only need 5 guys. So I have those 2 extra guys on my team. If those 2 happen to make it to the Super Bowl, I would be live to win that final with the team that I put together. But they would have to both make it to the Super Bowl for that team, for that draft to be live. But I do think I'm live to at least advance to round 2 with a team like that. And we take a look at Spread Astaire's team right now. Spread's got Lamar Jackson. He's got Zay Flowers. So he's got a good start there with 2 Baltimore guys. He got Kyren Williams. So he committed to Baltimore versus the Rams as a Super Bowl. Then he grabbed Gus Edwards, grabbed himself a flex position there. Then he grabbed Puka and Cooper. So that's a great stack right there. That's a great Baltimore versus Rams stack there. Then he grabbed David Montgomery for upside at his running back position. He got Stafford. He auto-drafted Justice Hill, so you can throw that one out. You would have taken what, Beckham in that spot, Spread?
Probably would have taken Collins there and then reevaluated the wide receiver board.
Yeah.
But to be fair, if I'm going to get auto-drafted someone, I got auto-drafted someone who helped my stack. And after talking this through with you, I think I would have rather gone 2, 3, 5. But for me to land on Justice Hill instead, I'm really actually kind of happy with it. I just need the Rams to go off. If the Rams go off, I'm set, because Gus Edwards wasn't going to really be, the workhorse there. So I could see those guys splitting a lot, and I can maybe use one in the main position and one in the flex if Baltimore continues to roll. So I'm pretty happy with it. Although ideally, I think I would have gone 2, 3, 5.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that anyone watching this has to remember when you're drafting these teams is you got to be flexible. Like when things pivot and you don't get the Super Bowl teams that you want, you got to draft the best guy on the board, and you got to commit, maybe to that team making it to the Super Bowl. And when I say the best player on the board, I'm talking about the player that you think can advance the furthest in the playoffs and potentially, make it to the Super Bowl. That is a good player. So you can grab that player and then build around him to give yourself more components. Like when I pivoted to the Lions, or when I pivoted to the Eagles, it was because I was building components of a team opposite from my main stack. My main stack was the Dolphins. That was my commitment to the AFC. At that point, I had so many Dolphins, it made no sense for me to commit to anyone else in the AFC. It made sense for me to get, my variance with the NFC. And that's why I was drafting Eagles, I was drafting Lions, and I drafted, like Rashad White, because it makes more sense for me to commit to my my variable positions by picking up NFC mini stacks to go along with my main AFC stack, because I want two of my teams that I committed to, Miami, obviously Detroit or Philly, to advance to the Super Bowl. So that gives me the most complete team that I can have advancing to the Super Bowl. Even if I'm without a quarterback, if Philly advances, at least I have a ton of like swings with my skill position players in the Super Bowl. And then I just hope that at that point the quarterbacks shit the bed, like and it's a running back game, or if it's a like a game more for PPR. I guess it's not a PPR situation, but you get what I'm saying. Like you're just hoping that the upside happens in your flex position at that point and not at the quarterback position. So that's a basic strategy when you're doing this. When you run into those situations, make sure you have your one main stack of the team that you're committed to, and then try to supplement it with, like maybe like 1, 2, or 3 mini stacks, or if it's only one NFC team, like a full stack of the NFC teams, like, and vice versa. If you had a main stack that's an NFC team, then you got to commit to like these mini stacks of like AFC teams to kind of help get to the Super Bowl, and hoping that one of those mini stacks of AFC teams that you have is going to be the AFC team that makes it to the Super Bowl. And you're not always going to get the teams that you want. You just got to commit when you do decide to roll with a particular AFC team or NFC team.
All right. Well, I think we did a pretty good job today. I'm pretty happy with this team. You said it right off the top. Landed at number 2. I knew I would have a chance at choosing one of the Super Bowl. I would be able to build around one of the Super Bowl teams, right?
Yep.
And pretty much had a good idea. But I'll be honest, Simon, even at number 1, I might have gone with Lamar.
I can't say.
McCaffrey has a calf strain right now, and that team is loaded.
Yep.
They could dial back his usage just a tad.
Right.
A little bit more Debo, a little more Ayuk, a little bit more Samuel. They still win by 30 points. Where there's no scenario, I don't think, where the Ravens advance and Lamar's not putting up numbers. Did you see my point? The 49ers advancing without McCaffrey going off is much more likely than the Ravens advancing and Lamar giving me a stinker. I mean, it could happen. There could be a bunch of defensive turnovers, or just like that Buffalo game where we didn't expect, where, hey, they can't stop the run. We'll just keep handing it off. But I'm pretty happy with where I landed. And like I said, I think I could have made a case for Lamar going number 1 overall. If I had number 1, I might have still approached it the same way. So I think I got a little bit of a bonus there, being able to draft a little early and getting the player who I've circled as my number 1 ranked player going into these playoffs.
Yeah, and it's like we always talk about on Game Script Spread. It's like when you commit to a captain, you are committing to a script that makes that captain in position to be the highest scoring player on the slate. With Playoff Best Ball, you're committing to a Super Bowl matchup, and you're building your script around that Super Bowl matchup. And like Spread said, like if you're drafting Lamar in that number 1 spot, it's because you think that something's wrong with McCaffrey. Then you want to target Elijah Mitchell like later on in the draft.
Or I simply believe that Baltimore might beat San Francisco again if they meet in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So I'll have the winning quarterback of the winning team if I'm able to make it that far. So that's the other argument I would give for Lamar. If they played the Super Bowl right now, I can't remember. I believe it's in Las Vegas this year. I think the Ravens are going to come off -2, -2.5.
Yeah.
I'll begin the team that's favored there that has had success earlier in the year and going against the juggernauts in the league. Not only have they've won impressively.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, fun game to play, a lot of strategy as you can see. Make sure when those mittens come up, practice on those mittens. They're only $5 entries. They have like $3 contests as well that pop up here and there. But yeah, the mittens and the $3 contests are the ones you want to focus on to get a feel for like drafting these teams and getting used to it. Don't blow your entire bankroll on these gauntlet teams like our friend that was sniping all of our players, because like you're gonna blow through your bankroll pretty quick if you're blowing through like $25 entries. Start small, get used to it, and once you have a good feel for it, then you dive into the gauntlet. And in order to do that, help your bankroll out by signing up for Underdog and using the promo code SEEK, SEEK, just like Heat Seekers. And when you're going in there, make sure you manually put in SEEK because they'll default you to a default promo code, but SEEK will give it credit to me for recommending it. And I will send you my best ball, playoff best ball rankings. Just hit me up on Twitter, send me a DM, let me know that you signed up, and I'll get you my playoff best ball rankings. And other than that, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page because I'm going to be having a bunch of these shows coming up. I believe I got Bob Gomes joining me tomorrow. So I have another show up tomorrow. And then, hit like on the video, get me up to 15 likes, and I'll start putting out some of these short videos. And in the meantime, Spread, where can they find you and what do you got coming up?
I'm at Spread Astaire on social media, continuing to crush this NBA content. So if you follow me, you'll be able to see all the stuff we are posting. Daily NBA Monday through Friday, and then of course we'll be doing football on Fridays as well to get you guys ready to win some money during these exciting playoffs.
I like it. Yep, and it's going to be a fun playoffs. A lot of uncertainty out there still. We got 20 teams vying for playoff spots still, and Spread and I have led you to a couple guys who've clinched already, and hopefully that's helped you out, and we'll continue to do that. Hopefully on this show and future shows. And I will talk to you guys a little bit later.